Hello, with lesson 5 of C++. In this very short lesson, I will only explain the call by reference parameter mechanism we can also use in C++. In the previous video about the file operation, I already used the reference, but now let's explain it a little bit more in detail. But let's first recap what we know about the call by value mechanism, which we have used in the language C. So let's try to make a function, a very simple function, to add two variables and to multiply two variables in one function. So let's do an example function. And this example function has as input two variables. Let's just make them of the type integer. And it has two output variables. And for now, I'm just thinking that I can use an integer without saying anything specific. So an integer sum and an integer product. Okay, if we wouldn't think about mechanisms and we would just make this function, we would do something like this. So sum becomes A plus B and product becomes A times B. Okay, and in our instance, then we would just use this function in our main. So in our main, I would declare two integers. So let's give them different names, x and y. I would initialize those integers, x being 2, y being 4. And then I would call this function. And in this function, of course, I give the input x and y, and I need to have two variables to store the output in. So let's declare them integer sum xy and product xy. Okay, if I would give these to the function, so xy sum xy product xy, then of course you know that the result will be nonsense. And let's initialize those two variables. And then hopefully you still remember that because we use the call by value mechanism in standard C and in C++, if I don't say anything particular, the standard mechanism will be call by value, then the sum xy and product xy won't be changed. So let's try that and to see if I'm right. So cout, the variable x, variable y, and then the two result variables. And let's end it with an end line. Okay, let's try to compile it first. Okay, no problem. Let's run the application. Okay, lesson 5, call by reference. And x is the value 2, y is the value 4, and indeed sum xy and the product xy are 0. So let's put some spaces in there as well. That looks so ugly otherwise. And I saw that I made a mistake in the call by a reference. Okay, so this won't work. So what would we do if we only had the call by value mechanism? Then we would of course use pointers. So I would change the function so that the first ones were really input variables and the second ones would be addresses of elements we are allowed to change. So for these sum and these product, I would make them pointers. So now sum is a pointer, product is a pointer, and then someone needs to give me the address of a real integer, so I'm able to change that one. So with the sum pointer I go up to the given variable from the caller, and with the star product I go up to the given variable of the caller. So in the main I can leave all these declarations. The only difference I have to make here is I have to give the function the address of my variable and the address of my other variable. And now this should work. So let's build it again. Okay, no problems. And let's run it. So we have call by reference, and indeed now you see that the sum has become 6 and the product has become 8. So with a very small trick, use pointers, we can change the call by value mechanism. We can use the call by value mechanism to do something with our variables from the main. Okay, in C++, we also have the option to just use the call by reference mechanism. And then we just need to know that to tell the function that the next variable has to given with a call by reference, we use the ampersand sign. So instead of saying you get a regular integer, I tell them you get not a regular integer, but an integer which will be given to the function with the help of the call by reference mechanism. And now the function will get back to its original shape. So now I can just work with the sum, because this sum here is in fact an alias name of the one I call the function with. So if I call it down here in the main with sum xy, I call the function, then this sum will just be an alias of this variable, so the one from the main. Same applies with the product. So this product xy, I will call the function with this variable, and then inside the function the product will just be an alias for this variable. So now I can just again use example xy, sum xy, product xy, and I will get the results we hope to get. Okay, let's check it. Works fine again. Let's debug. And indeed, so in C++ we again have the call by reference possibility, as you also have in C# and in other languages. So you don't need to use the pointers anymore if you want to give a function access to your variables from the main or from another function.